Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to the March Writers Wrap Up with me and my wonderful co-hosts that you see before you. Um, how's everybody doing? How has their week and their month been so far? Hope everyone's having a good time. Do you guys want to start by introducing yourselves quickly?
Yep, we'll do the clockwise around. That means Cass, you're first.
Me? Oh,
yes.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Cass. I used to have a channel called The Bookish Obsession, so y'all might know me from that. I make writing, reading, and analytical content here on YouTube. So yeah.
And I am the Vixen of Fiction here on YouTube. I'm on Twitch and Instagram as the Vixen of Fiction. I do writer chat type of things like this. I do author tubers react, and I also do on the bookish side because I'm half in the booktube community. We do the scripting the book, and we talk about adaptations and books and have a good time. I do a lot of things. I'm writing historical fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, you name it. I'm doing all the things, just like everybody else. Chandra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chandra Arthur. I write science fiction, historical fiction, and fantasy. Sometimes I post things on my channel. Mostly right now it's live streaming for Flash Fiction Live, as I am one half of that, as well as Natalie Locke, who is right over here. So you should go follow her. We do that on alternating channels. So on Saturday, we will be on Natalie's channel. Other than that, right now, school is trying to kill me, and I work a lot.
Yes. And I'm Sarah Cahill over here on YouTube and Twitch. I try to post writing content and live streams. I haven't been doing a very good job of it at the moment. But hopefully today is the start of a bit more of a cohesive and regular, being around the writing community than I have been over the past couple of months. So yeah. These are the co-hosts you have today, guys. There we go. It's Camp NaNoWriMo tomorrow, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, like I haven't signed up to actually complete it. Who got with? Oh, I'm so upset. I made banners earlier, but now they've all disappeared, and I'm so depressed. Okay, I'll sort that out. Who here is taking part in Camp NaNoWriMo next month?
Allegedly, I am.
Allegedly.
It's written in my planner.
Oh, there we go.
That's a start.
I think I think I'm altering goals because, well, fingers crossed, if these kids put in an offer that's actually accepted, I can stop doing go look at this house runs, which is pretty much been my life for the past month and a half. And I haven't hardly gotten any writing done. It's ridiculous. I'm so tired. Like my eyes are tired of driving, are tired of looking, and I have to math a lot. Because with each house, it's like, how much are they putting down? Because I'm trying to configure everything for them so that I can let them know this is how much work it needs. So you're looking at this many dollars for this interest rate. This is what your payment must be. I'm like, I don't want to math anymore. It's not my thing. But I'm good at this part. And I'm like, oh no, why?
You're a champion.
Yeah.
I would crumble at the thought of having to do math on a regular basis. Even if I cringe having to try to help my 11-year-old with his math homework. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Trooper for doing it for so long. Absolutely. Yeah, I think I made the mistake of signing up to do Camp NaNoWriMo. Mostly because I have not been writing lots over the past couple of months either. But apparently my current streak is too important to me to lose. So I signed up purely for that reason.
I think that I'm with you on that. I'm like I've done it every time since the first one I did. Thank you, Sarah. You guys got me to do the very first Nano. And I won. And now I feel like I have to keep going.
I feel that.
I also am allegedly doing Milwordy this year because I make bad decisions sometimes.
I've made the same bad decision. Yep.
That's literally me.
Yeah.
I don't think I finished Milwordy.
I literally, all I've done is write for school. That's all I have done. And I haven't even logged most of what I've written, so I still have to like go back and retroactively find out how much I wrote and put it all in there.
I did the dumb thing and decided to do Milwordy, but I decided to do it on a project where it's absolute chaos. Like it's very much a go with the flow kind of project. I'm like world building as I'm writing the first draft and character developing while I'm also doing all of that. And I don't know why I decided that this was the project I should start Milwordy with, because it's so hard to keep track of all of my words because everything is constantly changing because of that. So I'm just like, why I thought this is a good idea? Beyond me.
Oh my gosh. That's where you just have to like just start writing and calculate at some point. Be like, okay, I'm accumulating all the words and I'm going to calculate it at some point. Which I did not do when I was like, oh, I don't know about this Milwordy, but I'm gonna try a half Milwordy, or at least how many mil. I never calculated. I have no idea what I did last year. Just was like, yeah, I'm sure I wrote a lot of words.
This is I like this.
See, that's the thing with Camp NaNoWriMo. You used to be able, before they changed the entire website, you used to be I'm choking up. You used to be able to pick how you tracked your progress with your novel. So you didn't have to pick word count. You could pick hours done or minutes done and different ways to track how well or how much work you were doing. And that was fantastic because then you didn't sort of feel forced to having to write lots and lots. But then they changed the website and they changed the layout and they got rid of the cabins and they got rid of everything that was good about Camp NaNoWriMo, and it was just like, just pick a word count to do.
Yeah, see, that way sounds like fun. What?
Yeah.
So,
and also, I think it would eliminate the, you know, how people are like, the word count can be a little bit, you know, nerve-wracking for some people because our processes are different. I know mine is not always word count because I do a lot of drawing and sketching and brainstorming that happens up here. So it doesn't always make it on the paper, but it's still work. So that would totally help if I can be like, I spent like 2 hours focusing on this project, even though it didn't all come out in words. That would be great.
Yeah.
But who was it? You said this, I feel like. Someone said this to you and then you said it, and now I'm going to say it back to you because that's how this works. But a picture is worth 1,000 words.
This person right down here told me that. And I was like, yes.
It comes full circle.
It really does.
Yes.
Because I was like, what do I count my pictures as? And Ashley was like, well, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'm like, bingo, there we go.
I mean, the powers that be in camp can't even argue with that. It is known.
Oh my gosh. We got some first timers in here too, which is amazing.
Yes. It's always fun when someone is doing camp for the very first time. But no, Ashley and Sid, that is actually a really good thing to focus on. Just 30 minutes. Like, it doesn't matter how much work or word count you put into that 30 minutes. It's just sort of like, this is the focus I'm going to put in. And it's over the entire day as well. So who's to say you can't just focus for 5 minutes? And then 2 hours later, focus for another 5 minutes. It really takes the pressure off.
I might need to do something like that because I'm going to be in the middle of school this month, and I think this is going to be. Thanks, guys.
It's all about the conversion, because I sometimes I'd be like, I only want to write 15 chapters, but how do I put chapters into a word count goal without having to force myself to write a certain amount of words and make things difficult? So then I was just like, oh, so each chapter I write will be equal to 1,000 words that I will then enter on the website. So my official goal is 15,000 words, but each chapter is logged as 1,000 words, no matter
And
what
that's
the word
no matter what. If it's so if it's 900 words or 1,200 words, it's a chapter. Boom, take off that 1,000.
Yes.
Like that. I like that.
And then if it goes over, then cool. At the end, you just add in whatever extra words you have, right?
Add in extra words. If I need to add in extra words, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You have to cheat at Camp NaNoWriMo sometimes.
Well, it's making it work for you because we're all so different. It's like our kids when they go to school. There's the box. Everybody likes their kids to be right in the middle of the box. And some kids are way outside the box. Some kids are dancing around the little line of the box. Some dot in the box and then out of the box. Everybody learns differently. We all work differently. So it's kind of making this thing that's one thing fit for all of our individual personalities, work styles. We got to do it. Otherwise, we might make ourselves a little crazy trying to, be that one thing.
Can we just talk about how January was the longest year and February and March have been just like a blink?
January was the longest year?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, absolutely.
It dragged on, and now I'm like, how are we in spring already? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
It is all we had the stupidest weather where I live today. It started snowing at about 8 o'clock this morning, and it snowed for about 15 minutes and then stopped, and it was nice and bright and sunny but still cold. And throughout the entire day, it probably went on and off from snowing really heavily to bright sunny skies.
Oh,
it was absolutely ridiculous. And I'm like, yep, it's definitely spring in the UK if the weather's being that stupid.
Mm-hmm.
We have something kind of similar in Texas where it's like nice 1 minute and then the next minute it's just pouring cats and dogs, like just rain cats and dogs, and then it's fine, and then it's super hot, like summer weather, like 90-degree weather here, and then it's back to being like kind of like rainy and kind of chilly and nasty and muggy, and it's like, besides, what are you doing?
We're the same here in the Carolinas. It's crazy because it's spring. So it's like, when do you turn on the air conditioner and when do you officially stop using the heater? And I swear it's like the weather is trolling us. It'll be like 42 degrees. So you're like, you have to turn on the heat. It's too chilly in the house. But as soon as you do, the next day it's like 74 degrees. It's like,
yeah.
Now I've got to turn on the air conditioner. Nothing bugs me more than having to turn on the heater one day and the air conditioner the next. I'm just like,
every time I get in my car, I'm like, who is driving? It's like the radio's up too loud and it's like, the air is all the way on and it's like so cold in the morning, and then you get in the car in the afternoon and the heat's on and it's so hot and you like hurt it.
Yeah, and you've got your coat with you. It's just like, I can't wear this coat, and now I've got to lug it around with me and not put it on.
Oh yeah. And poor Loki, he loves wearing clothes, but like I'm trying to show him that it's too warm to put on a sweater or a hoodie. But every morning he goes to his drawer to get his sweater or hoodie. I'm like, it's too warm now. You're gonna like have a heat stroke or something. So I won't put it on him. And he's
what about hats or something? Does he like hats? Maybe a t-shirt?
He doesn't. He only likes his Loki hat, which I'm not gonna let him wear all the time. But he does like scarves. So I think I'm gonna transition him to scarves, like the little handkerchief type. He likes those. So I might transition him to those because he's just like not happy today. He feels like everybody got dressed except for him. He looks at us like, why?
So cute.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh. Right, so let's move on to the point of this stream, I guess. What productive things did everybody accomplish this month of March? I put productive things because I have not been productive in writing specifically, but that does not mean I did not get some stuff done.
Thank you for calling that out specifically.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't want to make myself feel bad about not doing any work, so we put it in nice neutral terms for everybody.
You want to start, Cass?
Did we get up to?
Sure. So like I said, this writing process has been kind of all over the place. But in March, I actually decided on like a solid plan. Like I have my journal here, where I actually have it like broken down by month, like what I want to accomplish. So I did that. I also managed to outline a character, like in its entirety, starting pretty much from scratch because nothing I'd done in January, March, or February, I was out of order. Up to that point had really been like solid. Like I had to pretty much scrap everything and just start over, which is really frustrating. But I got a character outline and I actually have a plan for like what I'm doing next. So fingers crossed I can stick to it.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Yay!
For me, I know January started out strong and then February things kind of fell off, but I have looked at probably at 36 houses. So that's something.
Yes.
And I did get some writing done. Like yesterday was my first day where I could just do all day, all writing, all my daughter, they put in a bid that was not accepted on a house that they really, really wanted. And so she's just like, I just want to take the day off. And I'm like, yes, let's just all take the day off. And so I was on people's writing streams. I'm like, I miss this so much. I was drawing. I did fake like book cover mock-ups. You guys know I like to do that for my whips. So I did some of those. So yesterday was good. So I got writing and crafty and artist things done yesterday. But before that, it's been so hit and miss because it's so hard for me to get focused when my brain is like tired of doing numbers. So that was a challenge to probably the last month and a half. And I wasn't expecting this month to be like that because I didn't understand how crazy the housing market was until after 2 weeks, the end of February, when they weren't able to find anything. And we just saw the prices going up and up and up and up. And so this month was very much more stressful just because I'm like, okay, trying to figure out the numbers and trying to find a house that they could, get. And if the needs were, it's a lot. And they're your kids. So you don't want them to make a bad choice. It's just like, you want them to have a good start, not be like worried about debt and doing repairs and stuff like that. So that there's another level of stress. And I told them that, and they're like, we totally understand. And they're like, don't worry about that. Cause they're like, ultimately the decision is theirs. So I shouldn't feel, concerned that what if I'm getting them a lemon of a house that needs too much work or something like that. They're like, no, they're like, just give us your honest opinion and we make the decision. I'm like, okay. So trying to release some of that burden. It's just been stressful. Hopefully next month I can focus on Nano and it'll be easier.
For me, pretty much everything has been about work the last month and a half, and it's been good. I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot. It's been very busy. And of course, I'm not going to get into the details of that, but it's been a lot of that. And then I also have school going on. I'm back in school, so I'm trying to finish up my degree, and everything's online, but none of the classes have the same format. So just relearning each time I start a new class how the professor wants their stuff turned in. And like, okay, maybe this is just me, but you know how it used to be you had to like turn your paper in with a very specific format, and the professor was like, you have to spell my name out this way, and you have to put the class title format. That's not a thing anymore.
Really?
It hasn't been for me. Not one of them. And I was like, you don't want with the tie in this and stuff, and then I'll put my name and then your name and where we are and what we're doing. No. Okay. Wow. So much useless information. But I digress. But yeah, that's been most of it. It's just like relearning that kind of stuff and trying to keep up. And so much. I'm really bummed about it because last year I did really well with reading. I think I did 82 books last year, so I'd wanted to go for 75 this year. And that was so funny.
So we're not on that track, huh?
No, I think I've been. It's almost April, and I've read 3 books this year. We're just killing.
My heart hurts for you.
Yeah, and y'all know how much I love reading, so I'm spending so much time reading textbooks and stuff. It's yeah, if you're not using research documentation format like MLA or APA, then professors don't much care. We even had one where we did do that. Like nothing else in the entire course related to that, and that was our final assignment. And I'm not even going to lie to you. I've already got the grade and I've already passed the class. I did it so slapdash that I was sure I was not going to get a good grade on it, and I got a B.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I don't know if it's good or not, because I know enough about MLA and APA to know that I didn't cite all of it very well. Like, my citations were present, but they weren't 100% formatted correctly, even though all the words were there. So the fact that I still got a B on it, and the paper was, I mean, of course we write, so y'all know. Yeah, I submitted a first draft. I'm not going to lie to you. But the fact that I did that with 4 out of 5 sources and not formatted correctly, like I should. But yeah, you are right. Like, I feel like they don't care anymore, which was, and maybe it was just me, but did anyone else's high school teachers be like, oh, if you don't learn to do this when you go to college, they're gonna like eat you alive? Or was that just my high school teachers?
No, that was mine too.
I had teachers like that. Some of my teachers were like, if you don't do this in college, they're not going to accept it, and you're not going to get a grade for it, and then you're going to fail out. It's like, well, geez.
Well, now I mean, they really did make you feel like if you didn't have it 100% perfect, don't even bother turning it in. And now most of the time, the stuff I turned, I'm like, I did that in literally 5 minutes. So I hope you like that.
Yeah.
I cannot relate at all to like strict, if you don't do this, you're going to get into so much trouble. Like, we never got taught that by our teachers and things. But yeah, I have heard or seen lots of memes, at least, about the strictness of the high school teachers, and then the college professors are just like, you know what, whatever, I don't care.
Oh yeah.
So it definitely feels like it's a sort of mindset they're trying to drill into the high schoolers.
For why?
And then it's like,
now I have
maybe they know when you get to college, it's kind of a free for all. So they're like, this is our last chance to drill this into them. So they just drill it in, knowing that you're going to do whatever. They're like, at least these kids that came from our school are going to know how to do it right.
I've had a weird month. I've recently started full-time back at work again. So it's been like the first time in 5 years I've been doing like 40 hours plus a week. So I really haven't had the time or energy to focus 100% on writing, which sucks so much. I absolutely hate it. I did get some stuff done for my new Witcher project, and I've been very slowly writing out more detailed outline for the scenes. I was supposed to be finished with the entire book by now, so I can start writing the way that I write my first drafts in April. I'm not even halfway finished. So next month should be interesting, because now I have to tweak how I write my first draft. But yeah, I just haven't had the energy to do anything.
I can see that.
Hopefully now it's slowly coming back. Once I think I figure out a routine and a proper schedule around the hours that I work, I should be okay. We'll see how it goes. Life gets in the way so much of writing sometimes. Callum Wrights uploaded their first writing vlog and video to YouTube, so that's their productivity. Yay. How nerve-wracking was it to do so?
That's what I
remember.
Tell me, because I still haven't done mine. I've got so much footage now that now I'm dreading going through and editing it. I'm like, I've been doing it, and then I'm like, now I actually have to put this together. I'll have to go look at yours, Callum, so it'll give me some motivation.
Yes, I think one of the worst bits is, with filming or editing.
Or all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll quit something and I'll watch it back and I'm like, I don't like this, and I don't want to. And it's not like, obviously I know like when I edit it, it's gonna be different. Like I know that, but it's still like this thing of like I'm not proud of this, and even if I edit it, I don't know if I'll still be proud of it. So it's just I keep scrapping and then redoing and then scrapping and redoing. So I'm in the process of doing a writing vlog, and I'm procrastinating so hard.
Like, you know, when I started filming stuff like that, I would just record it and tell myself, you can like film and edit this and you don't have to post it.
Yeah,
this is true.
Yeah.
And then like at least that way you're getting practice with the editing piece. And then if you're done editing it and you don't like it, you don't have to post it. And I find that it helps a lot, and you actually may get to where you edit it and you're like, I don't hate this. I think I'm going to post it. Versus like, you know, and honestly, it takes less time that way too, because you're not preemptively discrediting yourself. Because, you know, like I probably won't post this anyway. So you allow yourself to have fun with it. And then it happens really quick, comparatively speaking.
Yeah. Get out of our head about it. Kind of.
Yeah. Hey, Devin. Right, so we've spoken about what we did in March. Does anybody have any fun plans or goals for April? Writing related, camp related, or other thing related? Or anything that we're looking forward to doing?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it would be considered fun, but I'm world building in April.
Like that is fun. You're talking. Fun. We got some world builders over here. We're like, yes.
It's a chore, but it's fun.
I say I don't know if it's fun because I have a lot of notes for a bunch of different world building ideas for various stories, and I'm trying to combine them all so it's like one cohesive world. And it's like a huge daunting task, but I'm trying to like slowly like work my way through it and like compile everything so I can actually go through it and like, this does make sense. I don't want this anymore. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's fun, but it's also not fun. It's everything. It's a little bit everything.
Yeah.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Yeah. I love world building.
I hope you just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. I know it's going to seem daunting because like you said, with the different pieces, you have this novel, so you're trying to make the world all cohesive. Get yourself a timeline, have some fun with it, and know that there are some things that are going to end up not making the cut, and just be okay with it. Save that little bit for something else, you know?
Yeah.
The timeline, I cannot say enough good things about the timeline. If you have questions about the timeline, Nia has a wonderful strategy that is simultaneously saving my world and breaking my heart. But if you begin with it, it makes your life so much easier.
Yes, especially if you've got a big world. But I mean, the timeline's good for so many things. If you're writing a thriller or a mystery, the timeline's so helpful for that too, so that you can timeline all your characters, so that you can put in the little, red herrings and all of the little clues. If you've got the timeline, that way you're not at the end of your thriller like, oh, who's the killer? Let me just throw in the mailman. I always say throw in the mailman. It's like, and everybody's like, where'd the mailman come from? How did he do it? And you're like, if you plan ahead with the timelines and you've got people and places and who is wearing what and when, then you don't run into that thing where you have to throw in a character at the last minute. Because I hate that in a novel or in a show when you're watching the mystery and you're like, they never introduced. I've never seen or heard of this person. Where'd they come from? Yeah,
Hot
timelines are
twist.
great.
They actually killed the mailman and stole his clothes, so it wasn't the mailman, but it was the mailman's clothes.
That's a good way to get around it. Do you guys world build? The way I'm gonna put this is gonna sound really weird. Do you guys world build inside out or outside in?
Yes.
So do you focus on the entire world and get smaller and smaller until you reach where your story starts? Or do you start world building where your story starts and then world build out into the world around you? If that makes sense.
It depends on, because I say I'm a plotter with pantser tendencies, so it depends on what's happening. If a story just starts coming to my head or a character just starts coming, I'll start writing, and then I make my character notes, and then I'm like, well, what's going on in their world? And so I'm constantly writing notes. So even if I'm outlining, I'm making notes and building the world as I go. If I'm drafting, same thing. So a lot of it is all intertwined for me. And then usually once I have my one or two main characters and the world starts coming along, then I start seeing how these other characters fit in, what is their history. And like, I do a lot though, guys. I always tell people, you don't have to do all the things I do, but I literally think it's fun. I enjoy it so much. So I do way more than I have to, but it's because I genuinely enjoy it. But then I end up with a world where I have a story for the history, a story for the present, a story for the future, and lots of stories in between because I built this whole world. Will any of them ever get completed? That's another thing. Because I do so much world building. So
I agree with that. I don't have a specific way of doing it. Like for some things I get the idea, the initial idea, and I write everything that's in my head, like my current historical fiction. I wrote everything and then I didn't know when it took place exactly. So then I went back to the story and I found everything that had like a time window around it, like electricity and cars and running water. And I found time where there was a correct overlap so that I could incorporate everything I'd already written in my story. And that's how I broke it down to the actual time period. But then I also had to go back through and make sure there weren't any major wars and conflicts happening that would impact my story because I didn't want to write about that. Not, I wouldn't write about it, but it wasn't part of the story that I was telling, and it would just become kind of an interruption. So from that perspective, I did both. I really think it does depend on the story, but just to be, those are some things that I'm like, check and make sure there's not a war happening. It will wreck your story.
I always say that I do like the I don't start really digging into world, but this is a big problem actually. I don't start digging into world building until I get to like revision round 3-ish. So until then, all of my characters, I like to say, are walking around in Janet's void. And then when they need something, it bing pops in their hands. And I'm like, haha, look, there's something in a prop. And then it bing goes away. And then when I get to that draft where I'm like, well, I have to world build, I take all the little props that I've already given them and I lay them out in front of me. And I'm like, where would all of these things make sense? So kind of, yeah, like, but until then, so I don't know what you would call that. I Janet's void it until I can't no longer avoid it.
Yeah. And see with me, when I
love it. I love it.
When I'm writing a historical fiction, I get the idea. I kind of I like to know when it's happening because depending on if I'm doing late 1800s, I want to know if I'm using railways, I need to know which ones they had, where could they go. Literally, that makes a difference in one of my stories. Like if something comes up that I know, things were changing at this time. I have one where the telephone is integral. I needed to know what type of telephone did they have at this point in time? Were they already dialing, or were they still only using the pick up the line and the operator? You know what I mean? And because it's all different. So I don't say, oh, they dialed this, and everybody's like, they weren't dialing in 1899 yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these are but it's fun for me. I like history, and I like researching history also, you know, weird. So I actually like looking these things up and falling down the terrible rabbit holes. But I have some weird information stuck in my head that I'll probably never use because of it.
But it might spark another story.
It does that a lot, yes.
See, that's precisely why I don't really write anything other than fantasy.
Yep.
Because I hate research and I hate having to look up stuff. So I'm like, let me set my story in some vague English town that does not exist, so I don't have to research actual English towns and what they look like. Let me set it in a time that I'm not going to specify what year it is, so I don't have to sort of like abide by what happened in this year. Does anything like significant happen in this country that would affect the story? Like, it's just some English town at some point.
Does anybody here write contemporary?
Not if I can help it.
Okay.
I have one that it's one of my potential projects. I guess I need to decide which project I'm doing, but it's only because it's also a mystery thriller / romance. So it's not just contemporary.
I want it.
That's the only way I can do contemporary, because I'm like, I need something else. Because I don't know why.
My question was going to be, how, as writers, would you tackle doing a contemporary like now?
So I'm really glad you asked that question, because I have an idea for one that has been like, it's in, I said not if I can help it as I like mull an idea for one. But like, I mean, seriously, how do?
Like, do you completely ignore some of the things that are happening right now? It's like my people in my contemporary, they're just not going to deal with the community.
One of my favorite writers, thriller writers, contemporary thrillers, I read her latest book and it addressed it, and I was like, oh, I don't love that for you.
Was it because it wasn't done well, or was it because you just didn't want to read about it?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I know that's not super, but it was like, no. From reading it, I'm not sure that that's how the character would have felt, but it felt like the author was putting in her personal views as the character's views, and I'm not sure that that's how the character would have been. And it was hard to distinguish the two, or it's like, are you just ascribing these views to the character because you think that's what needs to be out there in the world? And that gets super complicated, because like that part wasn't believable, and then the character sounded really preachy about it, and I'm like, that's cool, again, if that's how the character really feels about it. But I would have been more comfortable if there was an actual interaction around it where the character gets upset and has an argument with somebody about the way that things are being handled one way or another, even if there's opposing views on the subject. I would much rather have that conflict than have it be an internal monologue of the character judging somebody else for how they're handling the situation. Because now I just feel like I'm in the author's head, not pretending to be a character judging somebody, and I didn't enjoy that. Also, if that's how it's going to be, no, I don't want to read about it, because I'm already judgmental enough for the both of us.
Well, I wondered. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you go, Ashley.
Oh, well, because I know that there are not a ton of books. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and please let me know if I am. But the flu of 1919.
1918.
1918, 1919. Not a lot of mentions of that in books that have stuck around. And I wonder if there's a reason, if other people were going through the same things in their writing circles, where they were like, do we talk about this, or do we just roaring 20s it up?
Yep. I don't think that's,
what do we do?
I think it's different from the war stuff, because a lot of people didn't even know about bat plague, and there's other plagues that happen, that, until they're like, unless it's something that happened like in the 14 or 1500, people don't really want to. I don't think people want to talk about it or read about it, but they'll like a lot of war historical fiction is popular, so that works. But yeah, like I didn't know much about the I don't like to call it the Spanish flu, but the 1918 flu pandemic. Nobody really knew much about it, so everybody's like, we've never been through anything like this before, and it's like, actually we have, and nobody likes to put it in their story.
After Devin's comment, we will be sprinting for 90 minutes.
I was gonna say I love this. If you ignore the pandemic, is it still contemporary? It doesn't make it a fantasy. And that's why I started laughing while one of y'all was talking. I felt bad, but it's because I read that. Especially you put it on screen.
Yes, it's all of those things. It's just like this TV show did a flash forward to 2020, and it's a fake flash forward because there's no pandemic and no one's wearing masks.
But we'll watch don't you guys watch? Well, I do those like those apocalyptic, like the virus is wiping out the world. Like I'll watch those and read those, but they're not real.
Do you know what's great? Nobody ever is wearing in them, and I think it's a lot now.
Yeah, that's not realistic. There's no wearing masks.
Honestly, I think the plague doctors are more realistic now.
So
yes, they are.
There's a TV show on Netflix called Somebody Feed Phil, where he goes places and he eats food. And that's the whole show. It's just a sweet little man going around being as happy as can be, enjoying absolutely everything he eats. And that's the whole show. And I used to love that show so much. And then a new season came out in 2020 and he was at Carnival. And he's in his hotel room and it panned out to all of the, and obviously he had not filmed it in 2020. He'd filmed it during Carnival in 2019, but they panned out all over the people. And I have not watched the rest of the season. I turned it off and I've not watched it since then because it was like stress. Look at all those people just breathing on each other.
I had a conversation with someone today and I was like, why was it ever okay for people to just go around breathing on everyone? Like in the grocery store, you know, you'd open a thing in the refrigerator and someone would be like, oh, let me just scooch in there real quick. No, do not scooch. Scooch away.
I was never okay with that. And I'm just glad that now so many more people are not okay with it.
That all of that. Like now when someone's like little fingers be touching stuff, you're just like, and they know exactly why you're making that face and they move away.
Yep. And I'm going to cut out before we start the next sprint because it's time for me to go. I have work today. But it was so much fun talking to everybody. These are one of my favorite things when everybody just gets together at the end of the month and we talk about how we're doing. So thank you, Sarah, for hosting, and you guys always a pleasure. Cass is my first time on stream with you. I'm so glad.
I'm gonna follow during the sprint at some point in time. I'm gonna follow Nia, but I'm so glad. It was so good to see everybody as well, and thank you.
Bobby Olympic.
Good to see y'all.
Yes, thank you guys, and have a great one. I'll hang out in the chat for as long as I can.
See you later. Bye.
See ya. Have a great time, guys.
Okie dokie. So let us move on to the sprinty portion of the stream. If anybody has any prep that they have to do for Camp NaNoWriMo tomorrow, I guess we can get it done now. And we'll be back afterwards with a couple more fun questions. So if everyone's ready to do some work, 3, 2, 1, let's go. Oh,
Rain.
I forgot that was still on.
I like it.
Okay, that is the end of the sprint. What did everybody get done?
I said a lot of words to you and realized that I was on mute the whole time. So
I was about to ask. I was
yeah.
like,
What'd you get done? Well.
I was sitting there like, have my headphones not connected to my computer like I thought they had? What's going on?
No, I muted because I was talking while I was reading. I'm beta reading a middle grade zombie book for my friend, and I got through 4 more chapters because it's very interesting.
Oh, that sounds good.
It's very cool.
Middle grade and zombies.
Yes, not a lot of that, so
There's
very
not,
cool.
no.
What about y'all?
What did you get done, Cass?
I managed to, I guess, outline my character, kind of. So I'm using Campfire Rights, and so I managed to like set all like the little boxes for all of like the details of this character up. But I only filled out, I think maybe like a third of them. So like, I guess outlining. I don't know if you can call it that. I don't know a better way of explaining it.
Awesome.
Do you do outlining characters in detail a lot, or is this a new thing that you're doing?
Not to this extent, usually. Usually I'm like, general personality, the relationship to other main characters, and maybe a little bit of the backstory. Cool, great, let's get writing. So this is the first time I'm actually like really going in depth with like the personality and stuff like that. So
That is exactly how I sort my characters out. I can't sit there and do like character profiles or filling out all the questionnaires for them, because I can look at those questionnaires and be like, I don't know how I would react in that situation. Like, I'm sure as heck not going to know how they're going to react in that situation. So I very much do the basics as well, and sort of explore the character as I'm writing them, and then whatever decisions they make as I'm writing, that forms their personality. But for my witchy project, I'm actually doing a lot more character work.
Hey.
Which I don't know how I ended up doing it. I think it's because where I was just procrastinating so much actually starting the draft. I was like, what other work could I do to prep for when I start writing? Oh, I'll just do some more work on the characters. So it was very unintentional. But yeah, they're quite fleshed out, and I haven't even started writing it yet. So I'm interested to see how that's going to go, forming the actual story, when I'm so used to working on the characters and their personalities during the first draft.
Yeah. I'm so mean to myself that when I fill out the character questionnaires or like really dive deep into the characters before I've written a draft, that guarantees that that's not what their character is going to be like. Like I have just guaranteed that whatever I said about this character is going to be completely opposite in the draft itself.
Not true.
And
I've discovered that I am more so someone who has to discover the characters as I write, because I can go into depth and like understand like the backstory and why they are the way that they are, and then as soon as I start to actually write, I don't know what happens, but it's like my brain, like the outlining side of my brain and the writing side of my brain just go, nope. They're like, yeah, no. It's like, so I'll like literally say and know my characters so well, and then not be able to like include anything that I like outlined in my story, because it's just like, I don't know, in my brain, they're like two magnets that just like won't go together. They're just like repulsing each other. I'm like, why are you like this? Just get in the story. Like I don't know
to do
what
an
it is.
outline And then I do the exploratory draft, which is different than the outline. And then by then I can write my first draft, and that's going to be, which is also completely different than both of those outlines. And by then I have the story figured out, but it's almost like it takes all of those tries to go through and figure out how the plot is going to go. Because I am mean.
Yeah. I think it's really important for people who outline, because I know a lot of people have trouble outlining because they're not obviously, I think they feel forced to stick to the outline that they've created. Mm-hmm. And that can then sometimes cause writer's block, because what you've outlined, you know, while you're writing it, you sort of realize that you're not happy with it. But you think, oh, but this is the outline. This is how the story is supposed to go. So this is what I have to write. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important for people to know that you don't have to stick to your outline.
Yeah.
While you write, like, go where your brain wants to take you, as long as you go back to the part of the outline that is important for the plot to sort of take place.
Yeah.
Well, and especially if you're doing a discovery writing on your characters in the draft, when you meet them, their personalities might not lead them to make the decision that you plotted out for them. And you don't ever want it to feel like you're playing Barbies with your characters and forcing them to make the decision. You know, because when you see the kids playing
that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
I never thought of it that way, but you're right. It's like playing Barbie.
If you can see the hands holding the characters and leading them to that decision, because the little kid decided that now Barbie is an archaeologist and so she has to go over here, then we've lost the plot a little bit, right? Like, if you're just making everything harder for yourself. So if your character is in fact an archaeologist, maybe they would not make this decision. You don't ever want to see the hands holding the Barbies.
Yeah.
See, all I can picture now is my oldest daughter playing Barbies with her brothers. And she's like very strict and rigid. Like, this is how the story is supposed to go. And she gets so angry when her brothers don't follow her very strict story plan.
Yes.
And I'm just imagining her as a writer, like, you have to do it this way. And then you've got the creative side going, but I want to do it this way. Please let
perfect.
Me. That's all I can imagine in my head now. It's a perfect analogy.
I think it's funny because I've realized that the way that I write is very similar to the way that I am in real life with people. Like, if you tell me I have to do something, I'm not going to do it, like, at all. And so I realized I'm like that with myself too, where if I'm like, you have to do this thing, something in my brain is just like, do I have to though? You want to bet? It's like, so I'm trying to, and I've discovered that especially with this story is like, I cannot make myself, like, that's why the story is so chaotic and so all over the place in terms of like the first draft and the characters and the world building and everything, because I'm doing it all at once. Because I've realized if I try to do this thing now, my brain is like, I think not. It's like, so it's just,
I think one of the reasons I don't like outlining, like, I've always wanted to do like a full, proper, very detailed, like 20,000 word outline, because I think that would help me in writing so much. Mm-hmm. My brain just does not let me do it, because my brain will not let me sit there and think, how precisely is this story going to go down piece by piece. The most it will do is plan out the main story points. Mm-hmm. And then while I'm writing the first draft, my brain will just fill in the blanks. I'll have extra conversations that go in, different little subplots and plot points will pop up. But I know that as long as I keep hitting the inciting incident, the catalyst, the midpoint, and I hit those really important parts of the plot, like, whatever happens in between, doesn't matter if I planned it or not, as long as the main story, as long as they can still connect to the main story and keep the main plot going.
have you tried doing, because I'm about to try this, have you tried doing like a really long synopsis, like somewhere between a synopsis and almost like a 5 to 10 page synopsis where you deep dive into it and then try to write it? Or would that make it boring for you because you've already written it?
I've done something similar. I
Okay.
refuse to call it a synopsis because synopsis is too professional for me. But I remember when I was doing, I was planning the story for Abingdon House #1. I sat down and I was like, right, I need to think of how this plot is going to go. So I basically free wrote the entire plot.
Okay.
And something really interesting needs to happen here. I wonder what it could be. This needs to happen later. So how do we get to that sort of situation? So it's much more of a free form synopsis than a rigid synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've done that in the past. I don't think I can sit down and force myself to do it. I think I just have to be in the right type of mood in order to sit down and sort of free write.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Cass?
But no, that is a very good idea to do as opposed to an official outline.
Yeah, because I think it shows you a little bit of characterization and world building, and a little like you can see if you're hitting the plot points. I had somebody I won a 10-page critique and they asked for my synopsis along with the 10 pages, and I was like, oh no, I don't have one. So I wrote it out, and in writing out the synopsis, which I edited the book, because as I was writing it down, I was like, oh, you know what? This doesn't make sense the way that I currently have it going if I was just going to list out what I had written. So now I know where I need to go and fix it because I did the synopsis. So I'm wondering if doing that between drafts would help, or like doing it before you draft, or if it would be like, well, I already wrote it. So the motivation to get to the end is gone because I've already got it on like a 10-page document. So I'm gonna try it. I'm always trying a new thing.
No, yeah, because it might work really well, and it might be the way that you stick forward and do every single first draft or every single revision going forward is to do the synopsis of what you have, because it's basically like giving you an overview, and you can see if point A goes to point B, goes to point C, goes to point D, or whether it just doesn't feel right because you're only looking at those main points.
Or if it's way too complicated.
As most of my stories are, yes.
Sorry. Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I struggle with outlines so much. Like even like the 27 chapter outline is it's a weird thing of like not being clear enough, but also like being too vague, if that makes sense. Like it's weird. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's as vague as it is like not vague to like my brain. Like I don't know like how else to explain that.
Is that the 3-act 9-block 27 chapter method by Katie Taswick?
Yeah.
I get what you mean by being vague, because there's only 27 chapters, and you've sort of got to stick to just those 27 chapters. So everything that you put in those 27 chapters is sort of very vague because you've only got those 27 chapters to write everything in. But then it's also very rigid and detailed because every single one of those 27 chapters, something specific has to happen in it.
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
It's just like it doesn't. It's after you've done it, it needs a lot of fleshing out beyond those initial 27 chapters. Is how I found when I used it for my novel. So I find it's a good starting point, but I found that I needed to flesh out a lot outside of those 27.
Especially since you and I do middle grade, and those chapter lengths are a little shorter than what you would find in a young adult or an adult. So if you were truly doing 27 chapters at that word count, you wouldn't hit 50,000 words if you're doing it that way, which might work for the book that you're writing. But if you do the 27 chapter outline, I was like, you only hit 46 with my predicted chapter length.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I did it with my YA, it worked. When I did it with my middle grade, which was Abingdon No. 2, which is the worst book out of all 5 of them, it did not work. It did not work for No. 2 because I had to come up with stuff to fit into each of the specific chapters, which it turned out didn't fit, and things were in places where they weren't supposed to be. But because it was so rigid and because I didn't have a lot of room to play, it did not work with middle grade, for me at least, at all whatsoever. And it might have been because it's a sequel and not a first book. It might have been the type of story I was trying to tell, but it was definitely a lot easier with my YA.
Yeah, like you were saying, it's vague, as in like it does not really anything like specific outside of like, but then it's also super, like you said, like super rigid with like every single chapter something needs to happen, and my brain just like doesn't work like that. Like I can't create a story like that. It's not organic to like my writing process. I'm trying to, this story specifically that I'm working on right now is so all over the place and chaotic because I'm letting it be, because I'm trying to go back to like the like middle school, early high school me who would just write without an outline and just enjoyed the process. And like, yeah, it was a lot of editing afterwards, but I loved writing so much at that point, and I was able to actually discover where I was going with my story a lot more organically and a lot better, and a lot, when it came to it after I edited it down, because overwriter, I realized that it's a lot more
Yeah.
I used
find that my
oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's fine, you go.
I did use the 20. Oh no, don't do that. I used the 27 chapter method this time for the most recent draft of my middle grade, but what I did was I let every chapter take up 2 chapters, which gave it space for the world building and the deep conversations and the subplots. And it was okay if something didn't happen, like if it took 2 chapters for that thing to happen, or even 3 chapters. And it was okay if it happened in the second chapter, and that first chapter was, we're going to go pick blackberries or whatever, and can them. And you could do a whole chapter on that where you were delving into character and not necessarily pushing the plot element forward, but you were building tension and deepening character. So that did help it work a little bit for me for this particular draft. But even then, I am going to have to go in and rearrange a bunch of stuff. So,
yeah. I did the same thing, but I broke down the chapters into scenes. So each chapter had 2 scenes in it. So one scene could focus on the point of the chapter. The second scene was just like whatever else I wanted that I thought would fit, that would still go with character, that could still sort of push a little bit towards the plot in other ways, but not so be focused on the one point that I needed to. And that's why I outline in scenes now, as opposed to chapters, because I think there's a lot more room to play.
Yeah.
If it's scenes, because then you can have more scenes than you do chapters.
Yeah.
More work because outline, but
I like that.
I started outlining this, outlining very loosely, this book that I'm currently writing like that by scene, because I realized it works so much better. Like chapters is way too rigid, whereas scenes I can be like, okay, going into the scene, these are the characters, this is the general thing that needs to be accomplished, go. And that's like, it's enough to get me going and writing and like not losing focus of what I'm trying to accomplish, but also not being so rigid or so vague that I'm like floundering for content. You know what I mean? So I find that that's actually been working so so much better. I think I might start doing this from now on. I'm also super early on in the project, so I'm gonna knock on wood. I don't jinx that. But so far it's working. So yeah, it's just, yeah, it's so much better.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing about writing is there's so many different ways to write, and there's so many different ways for you to explore how you write, and then finding the best way that works for you, which could change depending on, you know, how busy you are or how you're feeling mentally or physically, or just how you've grown as a writer, knowing what you can and can't do. But yeah, there's no end to how to write.
Yeah.
Which is what's fun about being part of the community, is that you learn every day different ways of doing things, which you might not have thought of before.
I remember when I very first started trying to learn more about the craft, and, you know, we have so many resources where you can listen directly to an author talk about their I keep dropping that, I'm so sorry, right next to the microphone. Where you can listen to people talk about their process, whether it's on podcasts or you know, YouTube interviews, or there have even been more authors interviewed on late night television than I remember seeing ever growing up. And not just because I wasn't allowed to watch late night television. Like, it just feels like authors are more open about their process. And if you can't find them on any of those things, they have a blog, they have their own YouTube channel. Like, there are so many ways that you can see their process. Like, social media. And I remember being like, people would go, well, what is your writing process? And they would walk you through this process that felt so detailed and specific. And I was like, how do they replicate that every time? And what I have learned since then is that what they're telling you is a really hyper-focused, specific, this is how I wrote this book. And next time it might 80% work the same way or not. And the next interview you hear from me may be very different. But I remember thinking, like, when do I get to the point where I get to know my writing process so that when somebody asks me my question, I don't go, and it turns out you just answer for the last thing that you wrote.
That's why I really take to heart the phrase, like, I don't have a writing process, because I don't. I have numerous writing processes, and whatever one works for this book is the one that works. So I don't have a writing process. You know, like, that's the way that I've taken to kind of thinking about it, because I feel like that's more, like, I guess, genuine to, like, the writing experience, because not every book you write is going to be the same exact way. Like, I had some books where I could outline rigidly, like 27 chapter outline, and it worked for, like, a Camp NaNoWriMo or a NaNoWriMo. And then I have other ones where, like, this novel, and one that I wrote, like, back in, like, middle school, early high school, with, I did this same process for it, is just like free writing and just going with it. For this project, you know what I mean? Like, it's different for every single one. And I'm learning this year, specifically because of this project, that it's okay if you don't have a writing process. It's okay if you, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay if it changes, and, you know, don't feel like you shouldn't feel penalized for that, or you shouldn't feel like you're not writing well enough or like your favorite authors because you're not doing it a certain way, or you're not, like, doing it their way, or, you know, like, any other 50 plus ways authors have told you to outline and stuff like that. So that's just what I'm discovering.
Every project needs something different.
What I need is for more people to interview authors about how revision works. I feel like there's a lot of talk about how writing works, and, like, it works because you do it, one day you decide to do it and you do it, or you don't do it, and then one day you look up and go, oh, I did it. Huh. And then you look at what you've done and you go, I did not do it. And you try and take what you made and turn it into a book. And I want people to talk about that, please.
I think it's funny that you
What,
mentioned
the
that,
actual
because
hard part of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at, it's funny because if you look at like WriterTube content, 90% of it is writing vlogs of like people writing the book or editing, but they don't tell you the editing process. They're just like, I'm editing. Guys, I edited 500 words. I edited 1,000 words. And then it's like, okay, so next we're going to publish. And it's like, hold up, you missed a couple steps. What did you do to get to that point? Like, you missed something.
Yeah.
Like,
see, this is where I also think definition is different.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people go, I'm editing my novel. And I'm like, okay, but what do you mean by editing? Because for me, editing is more line editing. Like the story is fixed, the characters are fixed, the world building is fixed, and I'm going in and making sure my spelling and grammar and sentences and sentence structure is fixed. That is editing for me. But I know some people say editing as in I'm revising my novel, or I'm rewriting my novel, or I'm replotting my novel. So there's too many definitions, and everyone has a different idea of what each definition means.
Yep.
And then everyone has such a different way of doing it. But yeah, it's not as widely spoken about. Like people happily go, this is how I brainstorm and this is how I outline. It's just like, how do you revise? How do you turn draft 1 into draft 2 and beyond?
I think it would be so helpful to hear other people talk more openly about the revision process, because everybody does it differently. And watching other people, just like AuthorTube has shown you that everyone has a different process. And you go, oh, it's okay if I don't have a process, or each book has its own process. Just like all of our openness about that has helped people go, it's okay if I don't have a process, or like each book does its own thing. That's fine. Yeah. I would love to see more content, or like more people talking about, when I say I'm revising, these are the kind of the general steps I'm taking this time. I'm gonna build a world book that I like, a world building book, so that everything is really consistent. I'm gonna make note cards and make sure that all the different pieces I'm going to make like the Charlie Day wall where I have all the pieces of string on there, so I can make sure that the thing that I mentioned in chapter 1 is in chapter 6 and in chapter 17, so that the reveal makes sense and it doesn't just go from 1 to here, bing, in the void. Yeah.
Like I said, it feels very much. Sorry.
No, you continue. I swear, I have spoken about revising on my channel before, I think, actually.
Share the link. I think I've watched it, but
it would have been a couple of years ago, I think, probably. I swear I've done some sort of like... You continue, Cass, sorry.
I was just going to say that, watching as much AuthorTube content, and this is part of the reason why I had to step away from it, is because it feels like everyone is like, I'm outlining a book. I'm writing a book. I revised a book, like vague, like I am revising, question mark, now publishing. And it's like, you missed it, like super detailed outlining, super detailed like writing process, like them staying up and like doing, getting 10K in like a day or something. And then it's like revising with like a giant question, and then it's like publishing. Here's all the stuff about publishing. It's like, you missed a huge chunk of that entire thing. And like that, I need help.
You know who does, who has been putting more, or like has been talking about it more, and I really appreciate that, is Lizelle Sambury. Yes. She has been really going through and being like, I am revising. So this means right now the thing I'm focusing on is the tension between the characters. And I'm like, okay, yes, that is good. tell me more. So I've really been enjoying those videos. Where anytime they say revising in them, it's like, whoop, I have to drop everything and watch it.
Yeah.
Note that down as future video ideas.
You're welcome.
I'm not revising anything at the moment, am I? Never mind. I'm not. No, I am.
I was going to say, aren't you?
Are you?
You have.
I'm working on too many things. I'm revising the Abingdon House series and Project Theft.
I thought you were revising
Project
for
Faye.
sure.
I am mostly revising this year, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Note to self, let's do some more vlogs on that. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm going to post a link in the chat. So this was me talking about moving past the first draft, or how I moved past the first draft. This was part of something that used to be the AuthorTube virtual retreat, which was like a 2-day sort of online convention for authors, where a bunch of people would pick topics to talk about, and there'd be some writing sprints throughout the day. And it was started by Kaylin Rivers. So this is more of a virtual presentation in regards to moving past the first draft. But that's one of the ones that I've done on the subject. Again, it was a good couple of years ago now that this was posted. But yeah, that's how I prep for revision.
Awesome. I have it open and I'm ready.
I think that's the great thing about social media is you get a lot of insight into how other people do things. But yeah, there are certain things that we just don't talk about, and I don't know why there's like a gap, in the informational videos about the writing process. I don't know why there's such a gap in regards to revision. Maybe because it is such a personal process. Maybe because it is a lot harder to sit and think about and achieve. And it's, I don't know, a lot more difficult to sit there and explain to people.
Yeah.
Or to vlog about without it being just an entire vlog of someone talking at you. Which is my vlogs all the time. 90% is talking.
I think another thing might be the fear of like spoiling things, and that inherent like fear of like saying too much about a stories, and like because I'm finding this out as I'm vlogging like my writing experience with this book specifically that I'm writing, because I am going to try be the operative word there, try to vlog the entire process, the outlining, the character building, world building, like writing process, the revising process, because somebody needs to talk about it. After that. But and I'm finding that like I keep second guessing myself. I'm like, I don't know if that's too much information or if that's like not enough, like to keep, because I think something that is not talked about is the desire to tell people about your story when you're vlogging like the writing process, but that inherent fear of like wanting to say enough to keep their attention, but not enough to where you're spoiling everything. Because especially in the case of a lot of people, like where you want to publish this book eventually, which is because I'm doing this story right now as a hobby more than anything. But if I did want to publish it later on in life, then I'd have to be careful right now about how much I say about it. You know what I mean? And it's that kind of what's the word? I can't think of it. That kind of conflicting idea of like wanting to share to keep your interest, but not wanting to share too much for fear of spoiling everything, and it not getting as great reception upon release because of it. You know what I mean? So
it's
like
how much
I
talk about the revision progress without specifying exactly what it is that I am revising.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm working on the tension between these characters, and I need to say more to help you understand, but that would give stuff away, so I can't say it.
Well, I mean, you could say, I noticed in my read through that the tension between this character, my main character, and this secondary character is just kind of flat in some places. So the way I'm going to revise today, my goal for the day is in this scene particularly, I'm going to try and beef up the tension where it was sagging. And I think I know how to do it. We'll see. It's probably going to end up having me add, I'm guessing, this many words. And then you come back and you're like, okay, well, actually what it meant was I needed to cut things. So I only ended up adding 100 words to the draft total, but it's because I had to rearrange things, but I think it reads a little cleaner now. And I got to do that in 4 more scenes or whatever, right? You don't have to say, and now I will. And like character A is a magic maven who uses, and character B is a warlock. This is sunshine and this one's grumpy. But right now there's not enough sunshine and too much grumpy. So we gotta, right?
Yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of it comes down to that inherent fear of sharing too much. I think that's why there's so much mystique. Because if you think about it, for a long time, that's why a lot of people weren't really sharing like in-depth outlining processes on YouTube, is literally because of that inherent fear of like, well, if I tell you too much about the outline, then I'm pretty much giving the entire plot away. And you've seen that kind of like break down more and more, especially with videos like Katie Tastics, where she does like full like 27 like chapter outlines to showcase like how you do that, like and stuff like that. And I think her videos, maybe not necessarily like were the catalyst for more videos like them, but I do think it helped people be able to like realize that it's okay if you're sharing like a little bit more, you know, like obviously you don't have to share the entire outline like Katie did, but you know, that fear of like saying too much isn't as like, as it doesn't have as much of a death grip on authors in the AuthorTube community when it comes to outlining it as I feel like it used to. But then again, that's just like my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me.
There used to be a sort of fear as well that people would steal ideas. Yeah, I don't want to say this in case someone steals my idea. And I think that the worry about people stealing other people's ideas has declined from where it used to be a few years ago.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, there was a Twitter pitch contest that they're thinking about no longer doing because someone came in and said, I think I will be writing that story now. Like they just commented at the bottom, this is my story now. And so they may cancel the whole contest because this one person came in and was like, hey, thanks for the story idea. It's mine.
Yeah.
I will be writing this now.
The thing with that though is I feel like canceling it would just give that person more ammunition and would give people like them more ammunition in a way, because it's saying like, because the thing is like, you can write the same story as I do, but you won't do it the exact same way that I do, because everyone's processes are different. Everyone has different ideas. So you can go ahead, go write it. Like my story is going to be completely different from yours. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that the issue was
when
this.
We live in an age where like.
Oh,
sorry. You're saying?
No. I think the issue that that person had was they didn't necessarily understand the difference between a premise and a trope. And so what they were saying is they were going to steal the premise. But when they were challenged on it, they were like, but this trope exists in so many other things. But you didn't say you were going to write something with that trope. You said you were going to steal this person's premise. And they were like, that's the same thing. Well,
not really.
No, it's not. Yeah.
It's definitely not. But like, yeah, I feel like people are way too like weary of tropes as like being a bad thing, because it's like, oh no, you had this trope in your book, not reading it. And I think a lot of that also comes down to like the way that we come to market books. It's always kind of been like, if you like this trope in this book, then you'll probably like this book because it has a similar trope, like an idea to it. And I understand that, but I also think that it's gotten to a point where it's like, because of that, for some reason, like as a collective society, we have just been like, no, tropes bad. And it's like, I don't know how we got here. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Tropes,
like, that's not a bad.
Tropes are bad for people who have not read fan fiction.
that is true.
Because the people who read fan fiction are like, these are my favorite tropes. And I will read the exact same story with the exact same characters in the exact same tropes over and over and over and over and over again because I enjoy them so much.
Yeah.
Like this is my comfort trope. Enemies to lovers, or and there was only one bed. Oh, that's their favorite trope. So people who don't read fan fiction on a regular basis, I think, feel tropes are they're not unique. They're sort of copying off of each other. But people who read fan fiction are just like, I know what I like, give it to me now.
Well, and I think also they have a misunderstanding of what a trope is, because they think that tropes are inherently something that is like the two people one bed. That's definitely like a romantic trope, and they don't understand that like all of their favorite media also contains tropes. They're just maybe not romantic tropes. But the chosen one is a trope that you see over and over again from, our
even
friends.
if it's not in a fantasy setting, it still shares the same words, and I can't think of them. Even if it doesn't seem like an outright, this is the chosen one trope.
Yeah.
Like if you dig deeper, like it shares the same. It is the same characteristics. It's just not in a fantasy setting, so it doesn't feel like it's the chosen one trope.
Yeah. I agree with this comment. It says that doing
also,
tropes.
I spent ages looking for you. I don't know if I can clue where you were.
Doing tropes very badly or doing cookie cutter stories having same tropes has turned trope from a writing convention to a reader tag for like or hate.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Especially with TikTok. Like, especially with like the rise of TikTok and stuff like that, and book talk on TikTok. And even before then, just social media, I think in general, not to say like social media bad, like I have social media. Like it's not that simple. It's not that black and white. But I do think that it has very much made like, I guess, solidified that idea in a lot of ways of like, oh, it has this trope, I'm not reading it. It doesn't matter if that trope, like that person might have done that trope better than what you read that made you hate it. It's that trope, so you're not going to read it and touch it at all. And I'm definitely guilty of this. There are certain tropes that I won't read. And like, I'm trying to like, this year, I'm really trying to push myself with my reading and like what I will read and what I won't read for that very reason. But for the longest time, there are definitely, and there's still a kind of tropes that I like won't touch with a 10-foot pole. But this year, I'm trying to kind of like undo that idea of like, okay, well, let me read this book that has this trope that I thought I wouldn't like, see if I like it. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't like that one. Maybe try again with a different book that has the same trope and see if that, that will do it. But yeah,
because it might not be the trope, it just might be the way that it's written.
Exactly.
Is what you're not vibing with.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the reason I don't like YA much at the moment, because it's always got like the love triangle trope in it, and I just can't.
Because it's never a real triangle.
Because it's never a real triangle. It's like a line or an arrowhead.
Yeah.
And also because they'll go, this is this exciting story and this has happened, and then the entire story is she going to pick this dude or is she going to pick this dude, but also that exciting thing is happening in the background. Is how I feel it goes sometimes.
Yeah, a great example of the love triangle done correctly is a manga / anime called Fruits Basket. Does a great job of actually making both of the love interests intriguing and both desirable outcomes for the the main character, and I think it does a really, really good job of that. So if you hate love triangles, I would say read or watch Fruits Basket. I think it does a good job. But,
but do you despise love triangles or do you despise love arrowheads? Because I want to see a real triangle. This person
A loves B, who loves C, who loves A.
Yes.
That is a love triangle.
That's a triangle.
I
Like
B and C both like A, but A likes both B and C. No, there's no line connecting the other two, so it's not a proper triangle. There we go.
It's not a triangle. I want a real triangle. Like, if you want a real triangle, there's a book coming out that I'm very excited about called Cool for the Summer. It's by Dahlia Adler, and it's going to be a real triangle.
I forgot what I was going to say.
12 to 15-year-olds don't need... Uh-oh.
I don't know what RI means, but I think LT is love triangle.
No, they don't.
Romantic interest.
Thank you, romantic interest.
Romantic
My
interest.
husband managed to figure it out.
I love that he figured it out, but the three of us couldn't.
And we're just like,
Help me.
what?
That is the most writer thing ever. The three of us could
That's
not
so
figure it
sweet.
out to stay alive, but he could.
I'm recording this.
Robbie, yeah. Thank you.
Dang.
Sorry.
No, they don't. That is correct.
Well, and that
That's
would be
why I
like...
enjoy writing a middle grade. I don't feel the urge. I don't feel the push to have to include romance to make it fit with what content is being consumed and bought and sold for YA
and that,
at the moment. That's a whole other conversation.
That age range is like upper middle grade and lower young adult, which does not there's not a lot of that. Generally middle grade is like 8 to 12, and then young adults, all of the characters are 16 and 17.
Yeah.
It's like nobody wants to talk about puberty, so we're just gonna skip that, and they're kind of come out on the other side looking beautiful and ready to make out.
Looking like 25-year-olds for some reason, but still youthful.
Yep.
But
that's why I always say there are two types of YA. There is Victorious YA, and then there is Riverdale YA.
Yep.
Oh my god.
And most of the YA is Riverdale YA.
That's
like
really...
you say they're 16 years old, but they act like they're in college, and they probably should be in college, but you're trying to get away with the younger audience.
That is a great
don't get me started
distinction.
on Riverdale. Riverdale is so bad with the way that they handle their teenage characters. So many problems. If you like Riverdale, I'm saying this now so I don't get a bunch of flack for it. If you like Riverdale, good for you. I cannot stand it. The writing is kind of bad, and the characters aren't characters. Especially the teenage ones.
Season one was good. Season one was interesting. Another on season 6, and they have superpowers.
What?
Apparently so. They have superpowers, and there's alternate realities, and
I did not know that.
Cults and it's very much out there. I think last season they were a lot of alternate realities. They traveled to an alternate reality where Archie was going around killing everybody or something because
Archie, you bad boy.
Because Jughead knew that they were in an alternate reality.
Spoilers?
I don't know. Why do you watch it? And now apparently they have superpowers, and Cheryl is not Cheryl.
Yeah, but
I don't know. This is what I've heard from memes recently.
Cheryl Blossom?
Very, yeah.
Oh no, I liked that one when I was a kid.
Yeah, so season 1 was good and intriguing, but they just went 5 ways down Wattpad Avenue. Like, how many alternate realities can I make from these characters? Like, it all feels like someone's gone in and taken the canon characters from season 1 and written them into their own fan fiction for each of the other seasons. that's sort of what it feels like at this point.
Totally.
It doesn't even feel like
Twilight
they're doing it like a comic book.
In regards to this comment, I want to say something in regards to this comment because I think it's an interesting discussion to have. Is how do we write YA content that validates like young like teenagers and stuff like that, like their experience, but also them wanting to be adults? Because let's be real, as teenagers we all wanted to act all grown up even though we were kids. Like like how do we validate that but also tell them without it being condescending that they're still children and that they can't necessarily do like the adult things that they see like on TV that they see us adults actually doing. You know what I mean? Like there's a fine line somewhere there. And I don't think that anyone seems to have an answer. I think and that kind of goes into us like putting more adult content into YA novels, especially because YA is such a big genre right now that it's bleeding into people like wanting to write the story that they want, but it's like, oh, I'm just gonna make it like YA so that I can get like a deal on it. You know what I mean? Like I can get published more easily, and that presents a problem because we're then putting adult content in content that's supposed to be for a younger audience. But at the same time, I don't think we should necessarily shy away from certain topics. There's a great saying, and it's that like you can talk to your kids about like the birds and the bees in a way that's like age appropriate for them. That's not necessarily like graphic or anything like that. But you know, like you can still talk to them about it, but depending on their age, you can talk to them in a way that's still like on their age level. And I think that that's not what we're seeing in YA. We're seeing this extremely graphic adult content put into these YA stories that's not at their level. You know what I mean? Like that's not at their age range. And I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation to have.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, that just reminded me. Like I've discussed so many times about how YA is too adult and how new adult should definitely be a genre, and most of the YA nowadays should be new adult and not young adult. I was reading a young adult this year, and I was just happily reading it, and then it turned into like a very mildly spicy sex scene, and I was like, this is in a YA novel? Are you serious?
Goodness.
I was like, would I want my 15-year-old sister reading this?
No. I think the
like,
problem.
How did that be allowed to happen? Like who let that happen and let it be classed as a YA?
I think a real problem that we have for our 13-year-old readers is that we are and by I say we, I don't mean writers, because I know writers are writing books that are important for those 13-year-old readers. But I think sometimes the reason that 13-year-old are toning around your Twilight or your Game of Thrones is not necessarily because they want to read adult things. They just don't know what else to read, because there's not a lot of stuff that is geared towards your average 13-year-old. Because in middle grade, if you have a 12-year-old protagonist, your reader is most likely 9 or 10. So by the time you get your 13-year-old protagonist, you need to see a 13-year-old reader. You should see problems that they're experiencing when they're 14, 15, 16, right? And our 13-year-old kiddo is not ready for some of the things in Twilight, and definitely not ready for Game of Thrones, but there's a real gap in the market. And publishers are just not publishing anything, or not nothing, but there's a real gap where it is hard to find books for kids in that age gap of 12 to 15, where the content is mature enough for them that it's not talking down to them, but it's not so mature that they feel like I am reading it something inappropriate.
Be exposed to, because I think that's also why like a lot of kids that age stop reading, because they can't find books that they enjoy, or why they keep reading lower middle grade. Because that's a safe, comfortable place for them to be, because then the only other option you have if you want to read a book is the YA which you currently have, which is geared more towards adults.
Because that's
Because
who buys
adults
them.
who grew up with YA don't want to stop reading YA, but the publishers have decided to gear the content towards the people with the money, as opposed to the people who it's supposed to be for, but whose parents have the money.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot easier to, you don't have to please the parents with the novel, you just have to please the reader. But I could talk for hours on this topic, because it's why I started writing middle grade in the first place. It's why I created Abingdon House, because I wanted a story for the 12 to 15-year-olds. Something similar to Percy Jackson that would grow as they did.
That would grow with you.
Yeah, the content would stay suitable to that age, maybe a little bit older when you get older, but it's something you could grow with. And you could experience everything as these characters experienced it, and you'd have something to read. That's why I started writing middle grade.
I actually think this is an interesting conversation, because I was actually talking to somebody, I don't think it was yesterday, I think it might have been the day before, about the turfling who shall not be named. And you laugh, it's true.
Oh no, I'm like, yeah, right.
But about the turfling who shall not be named, and how people like grew up, and whose characters grew up with the audience, but whose fundamental problem in her stories is literally the whose problem is that, like, while her characters technically aged up with her audience, the way that she handles topics and the more complex, nuanced topics and things never evolved past it being a black and white situation, and how that ultimately kind of also became like the downfall of the Harry Potter series in a way. But I was literally just talking about that like the other day, how like J.K. Rowling keeps it super simple, like these guys good, these guys bad, for like the first couple of books, which makes sense because her audience was really young who were reading that, you know. And then as the series went on, it became more adult, you know, the themes got darker, the books got longer and stuff like that, with the audience who was aging up. But her mentality of good and bad still remained very like black and white, and how like that like ultimately, like, that's why a lot of people reread Harry Potter, let's be real, for the nostalgia. I cannot find very many people who read it because they genuinely think that the writing is super, super great in terms of the themes explored. If you are one of those people watching, let me know, because I have a hard time finding anyone who's like that. And like, I would love to meet someone who actually genuinely likes those books for the theme and the messaging in it, rather than just the nostalgia of it. But that aside, but I think that is also, again, kind of goes back into this idea of like, how can we create content that's more adult for you as you grow up with it, but doesn't still talk down to that little kid Putty who started like reading that series or that book, you know what I mean? Or like that author's content. But yeah, I just wanted to use Harry Potter as an example because I think it's a great example of that, actually. But yeah.
See, back when I was a kid, when I was a young teenager, I had stuff like the Babysitters Club.
Yeah.
Like that was
and that stuff still it still exists.
YA, it still exists, yeah, but obviously that's very sort of 80s, early 90s content, which obviously there's still a lot of relatable issues within the Babysitters Club. But like that was my YA, that was when I was 13 to 15 years old, they were the types of books I was reading.
And those are shelved really over with
that
middle grade
style of book anymore. That's what's missing from YA. From not YA, that's what's missing from publishing at the moment. But I could talk for ages and ages about this because it's a topic that I feel strongly about, and I don't want to get into it now.
I think we talk about it almost every time you and I get on a stream together. We're let's talk about middle grade for a second. Can we talk about that?
Let's do it. We do. I'm definitely gonna have to like set up like a live stream specifically to rant about the subject. And talk about
Video
it.
idea.
Because then I can just focus on that as opposed to everything else
We're just
that I
giving
need to do.
just another video idea. I'm just
Another video idea.
yeah.
3 now. I've
Hey,
got 3
you're
and I've got a what's the word I'm looking for?
series.
A
No,
live stream.
again. A collab idea. There we go. That's the word.
Hey.
And also a collab idea. So there's too many ideas, guys.
Oh.
Why are you doing this to me?
A
Because
live
I have
stream.
time.
Like
Set
you.
as- a live stream set aside every single month just for the sheer ability to rant about this topic. Just one live stream set aside every month for just to rant about it.
I will entitle. I know exactly what I'm going to call it as well, because I've had this sort of idea for ages. But I've been so sort of like outside the room with the writing community recently. So I'll call it "Bitch the Pot."
I love
because
it.
Bitch the Pot is Victorian tea party slang for pour the tea. And of course now we spill the tea
I love it.
to talk about like certain issues. So there we go. That's my
good.
I love
my
that.
next step is to
It's Day.
to sort that out. Hey Day.
Hey, it's Day.
Hey, it's Day. So that's the best name ever. Absolutely love that.
So good.
What is and
I keep
isn't YA with
myself a coffee, even though I know it's tea.
You know what? That is really funny because not only is that Sarah, Cass, and Ashley, they are also my initials.
Hey.
So it works both ways. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to set. If anybody would like to join me monthly to bitch about writing and publishing, please let me know. I'm excited to set this idea up. Everyone else has got their own monthly chat about certain stuff. I want to make my own. Speaking of chat, speaking of chat, we're just going to rant the entire time. Speaking of that, it is time to go. It is now 11:10, and it is.
Oh my goodness!
I was supposed to stop this stream like at 10:30 so I could get ready for bed. But then we got caught up with talking about YA and middle grade, and that went all downhill.
Sorry, I'm pretty sure I was the one who started that.
It's fine. It's fine. I always enjoy having a little rant about stuff. It's absolutely not a problem. Thank you guys for joining us today for the monthly writers wrap up. Sleep is for the week, but I have had no sleep and I have kids to take to school in the morning and then I have work. So unfortunately, I do
must rest
in order to function properly. Stupid sleep. Do you guys want to give an outro before we go?
Ashley, you get to start this time because
I get to
started.
Okay. So I was just like, yeah, go for it. Hi and bye. I'm Ashley B. Pedigo. I am a writer for middle grade and picture book audiences, and I stream productivity and writing sprints over on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 Central. Right now we're in daylight time, so Central Daylight. And then I also do every first, third, and fifth Saturday at the same time. So 9 Central Daylight Time, AM in the morning. And I hope to see you there. And if not, you can find me on Instagram where I share pictures of all the 47 projects that I have in some various state of completion.
Who's being serious about the 47?
I made a list. I did.
You see it? Can we see it behind you on your little board? Is that your list up there?
No, that is this one right here.
Yeah.
No, that is a book list that I am. It's the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge that I'm doing with a bunch of friends. So I have that there, and I have not looked at it once. Because we made a spreadsheet, so I'm gonna look at that. I printed it out and I was all, I'm gonna write it in, and I haven't. I forgot it existed. No,
That is
my list is gone.
Oh.
Yikes. It's in the car. It's in the car because I went and tried to complete something on it. So your turn.
Hi guys, or I guess bye. I'm Cass. I don't love her. I make writing, bookish, and analytical content here on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. I don't post much because I don't have a working phone at the moment. But I do still talk to people and stuff like that and interact over there. So that's where you can find me. As well as here on YouTube. Yeah, I think that's it. I feel like I'm missing something. Who is surprised? Anyway.
Always missing something. We're writers.
Always
And I'm Sarah Cahill. I sometimes post writing content, hopefully much more regularly than I have been. I will be for camp next month, though. That's the plan, at least. Will I stick to the plan? I don't know. We'll see. Camp starts tomorrow, so for anyone participating, happy Camp NaNoWriMo. I wish you good luck in completing all of the things that you need to complete, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.